Hudson, all in favor? We're gonna move around the agenda a little bit because Tommy Lee has an hour and a half drive, so we wanna get him out of here. So on the agenda, item number 7, part 1, as far as contract for codes compliance officer. So initially, we got an email from, county executive's office saying that the budget committee would like for us to explore, having a codes compliance officer contract. I talked with you on the phone about that. And I think what they're looking for is, of course, cost cutting measures. And, I asked you to just kind of see what we need to do as a board to get someone that possibly will take this on a contract basis with a small monthly salary, or how that process works. So I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor on this.
Sure, and I'll be as brief as possible in my explanation. I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding this at the conclusion. I represent several communities, 8 counties and 5 cities throughout the Upper Cumberland. I deal with a couple of different types of codes compliance officers. I deal with the contract, codes compliance officer / building inspector, whatever you like to call them. But the contract codes enforcement officer, they deal with a very small monthly salary, usually depending upon the community. And I'll just use the city of Baxter, for example. I think that their codes compliance officer makes around $500 a month, somewhere in there, but that's his flat fee. But he also makes a percentage of all of his inspections that he does and any codes compliance permits that he issues. I do not believe that he takes any money that's concerned. I think that goes off to the city. So his is strictly in the permanent world. He does not receive any benefits from the city. He does not receive a staff. He does not receive a vehicle. I don't believe that there is reimbursement for mileage. I believe that is all covered in his contract.
Is he a licensed?
He is a licensed home inspector, and he also does inspections, home inspections for residential construction.
No, he is not an employee of, is it City of Baxter?
City of Baxter, yeah. I mean, he's not a full-time employee. I think he answers to the mayor and the council, so I think technically, yeah, he would be.
He's an independent contractor.
He's an independent contractor.
So, okay, so he's not an employee?
No.
You're either a contractor or you're an employee?
He's a contractor.
Okay.
He does his own private home inspections as part of his business, and then the city, if I'm
Okay.
speaking out of turn, Tommy, let me know, but the city of Baxter is just one of his clients.
Correct, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
That is correct. And so, like I said, I think he does have an office there, but I don't think he has a line item in the budget for supplies and things like that. Most of that, all of that is covered by his contract. They do that because they do not have the business to justify a full-time employee, which, when you get into that, you get into, vehicles and potential administrative assistants, benefits, things of that nature. And it simply comes down to simple economics. If your business dictates that you have a full-time employee, now a full-time employee also, I should say this as well, the full-time employee in most cases does not take a cut of any fees. All fees go to the jurisdiction.
Question about that. The way that the county has it set up now is that there's yes, for this part, I think it's like $450 pays for the new construction permit, and the county keeps like $15 of that because the county doesn't have a licensed home inspector. So
Correct, because those inspections are performed by the Department of Commerce and Insurance.
So would the county commission have to make a resolution to get?
Yeah, I would say they would have to do something like that, or you simply call the Department of Commerce and Insurance and say, ask them what to do.
Of the 8 counties you represent, Tommy, which one is closest to the geographical size of Cannon and about the same socioeconomic?
Well, I don't know that there are any, because, and I'll tell you this one. Most, the counties that I represent that are your size do not have zoning in place, and so that's a different animal there. The planning commission and myself regulate the division of property, but we don't have to worry about the use of land. So Smith County would be one that I would say closely resembles you in population, but they're right on the interstate, and, you know, they have 3 cities that are viable, that, you know, have construction and things like that going on. So I don't know that I would, you know, put them in the same category as Cannon, but it's as similar as I could draw from. They have a full-time code enforcement officer. And
What's
Smith
county
County.
seat?
Carthage.
Carthage, okay.
And just for the board's edification, the budget that we presented had, for part-time codes compliance and travel, we budgeted $11,118. If we were to recommend a licensed home inspector under a contract, if we were to recommend it under terms similar to how Baxter has it, we hire an independent contractor at $500 a month, that's $6,000. And so that is a significantly less amount than what was in our proposal.
And I will say,
If I could go back again to Smith County,
Mhm.
it is not similar to Cannon County because why?
It's on the interstate and much more.
Population wise is,
Population is only about, what are you guys, about 17, 18,000, somewhere in there?
2010, it was at
13,000.
Doing the census.
Yeah, so Smith is around 20,000, so population is not that big a difference, but like I said, the amount of construction and the commercial and, yeah.
19,700 and something, Smith has 2017. And this is Google, so they estimate Canton has 14,360.
okay, so let's talk, okay. So you can only speak to the counties that you.
Correct.
So Smith County, you said because down the interstate it has a lot more construction. Okay, so that's not an equal, but do you know of anyone, maybe like Bedford County, is that?
I'm not sure, they're not in our region.
Okay.
And I think from talking, when I talked to Tommy on the phone, I think that Baxter was a good example because Baxter probably would have a similar type of caseload that we.
Workload,
actually
yeah,
have.
I would think so, yeah.
Does the city of Baxter have building codes?
They do.
See, that's where I'm a little confused here. We're focused on essentially zoning codes and enforcement of zoning codes. But we're talking at the same time, like, we have building codes, we don't.
You're right. And
Is that something we plan on fixing, or?
yes. But
Because
the mandate I have from, the mandate we have from the county, from the budget committee, the mandate is to explore ways to make a codes compliance officer cheaper on the county's bottom line. So right now, it's finding the codes compliance officer. Like here's an example,
But
like,
we've got to decide what that person's going to do. His point is well
well,
taken.
slow down, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
It's like, for example, the hearing that we're having here today with volunteer view and the other, and the veterans retreat, that would typically be something we would have a hearing on, that would be something a codes compliance officer would make a determination on.
And then if that citizen wanted to appeal the decision of the code compliance officer, then it would come to the school.
And then on the permitting aspect.
And the zoning laws approve that. That's according to zoning, right?
Yeah, the codes compliance officer makes the determinations on the zoning code.
Yeah.
So the only time it comes to the zoning board then is when there's an exception or they want to challenge the codes compliance.
Or variance.
Or
Three,
Okay.
yeah, three
Okay.
actions, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Request for interpretation would be challenging the codes compliance
That's
officer.
exactly
That's,
right.
that's what is here today. You know, Mr.
Right.
Officer, remember last meeting, we were trying to figure out what the heck does request for interpretation interpretation mean?
Yeah.
Well, then after doing a little study review, this is what requests for interpretation.
What I was gonna say, David, is part of what we're gonna expect a codes compliance person to do is to start a building codes program.
No, that's not within their purview, that's something that we would have to have a workshop on sometime and bring that to the planning commission for them to bring to the county commission. For example, the codes that Mr. Robinson presented last time that we didn't have time to discuss is a really good example of something that I would suggest at the next meeting discussing having a workshop in July for like 3
Let's
hours.
stick our toe in the water.
Right, for 3 hours on a Saturday to review the codes and to also review our zoning ordinance and any proposed amendments we need to make. Like, for example, the definition of notice being 2 publications in the newspaper.
Okay, so what you're talking about was a building inspector. They call codes compliance plus building inspector from Baxter, right?
That's correct, he does both.
He does both. And so Baxter's about the same size, but he also does building inspections. And they're able to pay $500 a month to get all that done.
Plus his fees.
He gets a
Percentage.
percentage on the building inspections instead of, like, I think the difference would be right now, the county keeps like $15 out of 450. If that is changed and we have a codes compliance officer / building inspector, it would be a higher
I
percentage.
think you keep all of it. County gets all of it, and then
He gets a
and then
percentage.
he gets his cut.
He gets his cut.
So what does he get a cut for doing what?
Building inspections on new construction.
Which is not going to be what we have our person do, right?
Well, I think eventually, yes, it's gonna fall within our, yes. And that's the thing, is right now it's separate, but it is within the same area of our, it's within the same purview.
Mr. Chairman. I think that if you only wanted to hire someone to do codes compliance and strictly enforce the zoning code, you could probably get away with less than that, but you probably only get them 1, maybe 2 days a week. You know, when you get what you pay for, so I mean, the less you pay, the fewer you're going, the less that person will be, you know, on duty, so to speak.
Okay, maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm missing something. You seem to understand how I think. We're talking up.
You smell smoke, do you?
So all this person can do is codes compliance.
I think.
I mean, just, is that what I'm hearing you say? We don't need somebody who is going to be a building inspector.
I think it's
We only-
premature to expect somebody to be able to do building inspection when all you require is
Codes.
zoning,
Right.
zoning inspections.
But I think we're not on the same page on this, is that if you're gonna have somebody only do codes compliance, you're not gonna be able to get an independent contractor to come in here at a lesser rate, because part of the fees that they make is their cut on these building inspections. So the position is kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So a lot of these areas that do this, they have a codes compliance / building inspector, that they get their cut from the building inspection stuff, and then they get their, is that making, is that?
If I was sitting in the county commission and you came to me and you said you're gonna hire a compliance officer / building inspector for $500 a month, half of that commission's gonna say, but we don't have building inspections, so we get $250 a month.
I think half the commission is going to say no regardless of what we propose, so it doesn't
No,
matter.
I'm talking about just from a
From a practical standpoint,
practical.
I mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, I think that's fair, but, and also on top of that, the county would have to change their building permit. I mean, I agree with Mr. Robinson to an extent about, it's a little premature to get into that because we don't even have the stuff in place like we need to on the codes part, on the building codes. However, on the other hand, on that, it's, I think that if it's just, I'm town attorney in town of Morrison, and we have a codes compliance officer for the town of Morrison. He's not a home inspector. He gets paid like $15 an hour. He works part-time. And that was the first budget that we based our budget on, was the similar formula. If we want to present something to the budget committee that's cheaper, I think that from what I'm hearing, that it's typically when it's contract work like this, it includes a licensed home inspector.
It is typically, but that doesn't mean that it has to be. I mean, you could offer somebody a lot less than that,
The problem.
potentially,
Right,
but the
right.
problem-
and get someone just to enforce the code.
The incentive of, like, for example, the incentive of a home inspector doing codes is that, he only gets that $400, $500 month salary, but he gets his cut on the home inspections, and that's where he makes his money, getting that cut. A codes compliance officer, that's not gonna be as sweet of a deal, because, it's just the $50 a day fine and all of that, those provisions that are built into the codes, correct me if I'm wrong, but codes compliance officers usually don't get a cut of that.
No, they don't, it goes straight to the general fund.
And I would even, as an attorney, I would even think that's a little bit constitutionally suspect as well, because you're incentivizing a compliance officer to find things wrong, and you don't want to do that, you want them to be objective.
But I will say this, if you were to hire someone strictly to enforce the code, there is no certifications that come along with that, to my knowledge. I mean, you don't have to be, like with an inspector, you have to be state certified and things like that, so they are no charge on it. But if you strictly wanted someone to enforce the code, you can pull anyone.
So what do you think?
I think there are a lot of administrative string pulling needs to take place before you need to consider a building inspector. Now, I think you put I myself would volunteer pro bono, I believe is the expression, to be the zoning and compliance officer. I don't know how that would work, being on the committee, but on the board. But until we know what we're doing, it's a little unreasonable to expect somebody to do it.
So the next question then is, that's fair, so the next question is, essentially what the budget committee is looking for, give us an option that's cheaper than what you gave us. So now we've got to take,
Did I just hear you offer to do that?
can we do that?
I don't see any reason why it couldn't.
Because basically what he'd just be doing is coming and giving
Yeah,
recommendations.
well, think about this, though.
I would have to recuse myself.
That's
from all of it.
exactly
Yeah, we don't need
right.
that.
That's what I was
And we've already-
getting ready to say. I first thought, no, that wouldn't be a problem, then
Yeah.
it would be a huge problem.
Because if you
So
spot
I'm the
somebody,
judge and jury at the same time.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
And-
so no, that wouldn't be
And if they
possible.
appealed you to us and you're one of the voting members, part of us, that defeats the purpose of that
It's the Roger
process.
Goodell.
It is a Roger Goodell situation, yes, except with a lot less money.
Yeah, so.
So,
I mean, you've got options. You're not stuck with just one way out.
Right.
You have,
we just need to come up with a cheaper alternative.
I certainly will not speak for Mr. Bush, but I would say, and he is currently performing in that role right now. Is that
Pretty
correct?
much.
Codes enforcement officers give bad news all the time, and I would not imagine, and Mr. Bush may be different, but that an elected official would not want to keep this job for a very long
No,
time.
he doesn't want to keep this job.
Well, we shouldn't be asking him to.
No, we
Right.
shouldn't. He took it upon himself, and no, it's not fair to ask him to continue to do it either.
So how much did you say we have in our budget, $1,000 a month?
That's what was proposed. I think there were.
Okay, so
lesser
that's what you
options.
proposed?
Our projections on revenue, it's dubious because we don't have any prior budget to go on and what our revenue was. We've made $1,050.
And that's the thing, you'll never know until a full cycle, at least a full cycle
So
comes.
really, actually, we don't have to decide the position we're gonna hire, we just have to say, we'll counter with X amount, right?
Yeah, I think it's,
And if you said for $500 a month, you could actually get somebody who is qualified to do more.
well, like, for this budget, for example, we put in mileage, and I think that we were probably being generous on that. We could probably cut out $970 of mileage right there.
And just my opinion, just working with communities and things like that, you have to have an enforcement officer for your ordinance. but that is as far as you have to take it. You could hire someone strictly to enforce the code, see how it goes, see how much revenue is generated, and then go from there. If you need to send that person to school to get more training, to allow them to do more things,
What's
then
the,
you can do that.
do you know what the typical starting hourly wage is? Like I said, I just based on my experience with Town of Morrison.
But I mean, I think $15 an hour would probably be comparable.
That's what I thought.
Here.
But you're not
Cannon
gonna
County.
get 15, you're not gonna, if you're gonna pay $15 an hour, you've gotta pay mileage.
Well, you don't do that with the Town of Morrison's pay mileage.
But I will say this, it's a different scenario, and I'll agree with Ms. Wallen on this, because he's confined to an area
Right, and this is
of
out
a
of
few
town.
square miles, yeah, and this
I
is,
mean, we wanna be fair to this person. Okay, so, all you need right now, based upon this discussion, is we put in $1,000 a month, right? Is that what we put in?
Well, yeah, a little less than 1,000. It'd be
11,000.
11,000 a year.
Okay, so, is it premature to make a motion?
It's never premature to make a motion.
Okay, I will make a motion that we say that we start out with $500 a month. And it'd be a contract. And we then decide whether or not it's going to be strictly codes, what the background of the person is that we hire for that. But that we do leave on the table mileage. Just because of the ground that the person has to cover. That's,
So, my understanding is Ms. Wild has made a motion to present to the Budget Committee an amendment to our proposed budget that would put the personnel for the codes compliance officer from making $10,140 a year to budget for the codes compliance officer to make $6,000 a year, and also to keep all other instances of this proposed budget in effect, including the $978 calculated for possible mileage.
How's the contract?
And that this will be an independent contractor that we have that we will hire and use our processes to hire. Is that my understanding of the motion as well?
yes.
Okay. I hear a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
That is seconded by Mr. Brandon. Is there any further discussion from the board on that? No further discussion, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0. I will, Ms. Wyland, I will submit a amended proposed budget based upon your motion, and I will email that to Ms. Hickman, and it will be in the substantial same format as the original one that I presented, with an explanation as to the nature of it as well.
Okay.
All right.
Just as a comment, my offering, my services was meant more to be to help develop the administration of that position and define its requirements.
Hey, I feel your pain. I'm working for free too, man. So I get it.
Well, but I think because yours is also on the record, I think it's good that we put it on the record that you have volunteered pro bono to help this person
I want to figure it out.
with the administrative, with getting the administrative functions working.
Yes,
Up and running.
and add that
Okay.
to the minutes, absolutely. Because I can't think of a better person than Mr. Robinson to.
and I'm also voting for this person as well.
Okay.
And then we just don't know where you at. We don't want you to get tired of
I
it.
appreciate
Well,
it.
but it's good that they have your expertise to call on.
Yeah, and that's what I do in my other communities, I give technical assistance to the codes compliance officer. I'm the one that can look up state law and things of that nature without having to call the county attorney and get the big fee.
Right.
My fee's already paid.
We no longer have an attorney, so I guess we're going.
All right, so. Escape right past that. Moving to number 6 on the agenda, request for hearing. This involves Mr. John Taylor, and the citizens of Volunteer View subdivision. Brief case description on this. The citizens of Volunteer View subdivision have brought before this board concerns that Mr. Taylor is operating a quote veterans retreat in an area designated A1 agricultural district. Mr. Taylor states that any non-conforming use is grandfathered into operations commencing prior to adoption of zoning ordinance. Alternatively, Mr. Taylor has stated that the property falls under an exception to the zoning ordinance and or constitutes a conforming use under ag sports. Before I get started on this, are there any board members that would have any sort of conflict of interest? Anybody on this board live in Volunteer View? Anybody made any donations or anything like that to any nonprofits involved with Mr. Taylor's business or anything like that? All right, there being no conflict, I'm going to hand down to the board. These are some exhibits that I've gathered for the board's consideration. Mr. Bush, who is our de facto codes compliance officer, I think it would be fair to say had a conflict on looking into this. Therefore, I have, taken it upon myself to do a little investigating without really making a recommendation to the board, but just providing the board some of the things that I've gathered in my correspondence. And very briefly, and we're going to get to the public hearing part, but I'm just going to kind of sound off on what these exhibits are. The first one, the first exhibit is a letter to Volunteer View residents that was distributed by Sheepdog R&R through Mr. Taylor. Exhibit 2 are notes of concern that I received from Ms. Heather Melton that has some notes on there about some of her concerns and the things that she will probably be speaking on shortly. Exhibit 3 is an email I got from Mr. Taylor, some supporting arguments for what he is wanting to continue doing on that property. And then Exhibit 4 is the email correspondence I got from Kelly Zarcone. She is the secretary of Sheepdog R&R. But before we start getting into the weeds on that, I'd like to go ahead and take public comment, and then we can talk about the exhibits afterwards. If anybody is representing a party, they have 5 minutes. Individuals have 3 minutes. I don't keep a stopwatch. It's just more of a compass than a straitjacket. And board members may question anyone that chooses to speak, and anybody that wants to speak, we just ask you to come up here. And all witnesses coming before the board have to be sworn. So because this was brought to our attention by the members of Volunteer View subdivision, they will carry the ball first. So anyone wanting to speak on behalf of Volunteer View subdivision can start a line here, or however you'd like to start. If anybody would like to speak on behalf of Volunteer View, please speak now.
Chairman Linehan, we have a clarification.
Yes,
These
ma'am.
exhibits, were these pulled together by the county executive or?
They were pulled together by myself because the county executives conflicted out in this.
Okay,
So these are informational exhibits based upon my correspondence and investigation.
okay. Thank you.
But they do not house or contain any opinion that I have, because I don't have an opinion yet, because we haven't had a full hearing.
Okay.
Is anybody here wanting to speak on behalf?
You didn't tell me I had to have a note tree.
Well, take your time.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it on the phone.
Do you want to look at your notes that I have?
You have all my notes.
Here. Here you go.
I gave you my original.
And you want,
My name's Heather Melton.
okay, very good, thank you.
And before we start, on a hearing like this, Mr. Lee, do you think they need to be sworn?
That's up to you. I don't think it's mandatory.
Okay.
Because it's,
When you have an expert opinion,
right, so we can waive that if there's no objection.
no, actually, no.
I don't have a problem with that either. All right, Ms. Melton, go ahead and,
All right, my name's Heather Melton. I've been a resident of Volunteer View for 11 years, almost 12. To my knowledge, no letter was ever given to me concerning sheepdog R&R. The way I found out about it was through a donations letter that was sent to a company that got sent to me because this property connects to mine. There are several concerns about this area, and what I have read, what I have